everybody, welcome back. Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. I'm back. I have an interesting video for you today. My apology ahead of time for the shady video quality. I'm using my phone right now, but I've been asked to do a video giving my thoughts on the upcoming UFC fight, UFC 202, that's going to take place here on Saturday between Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is Conor McGregor. Let's understand the fact that he is the 145-pound featherweight UFC champion. Okay. Now, Conor likes to go outside of the envelope a little bit, and he likes to explore other divisions. And so, what his plan was he was going to move up to 155 pounds, and he was going to fight Rafael dos Anjos. The fight was planned, they had press conferences, everything looked good, and Rafael dos Anjos unfortunately injured his foot and was forced to pull out due to injury. So that left the UFC shuffling, trying to find a replacement, last minute, a replacement fighter to fight Conor McGregor at UFC 196. Now, Nate Diaz decided to step up to face Conor McGregor at UFC 196. Now, let's make one thing perfectly clear. When Nate Diaz stepped up, he stepped up on 10 days' notice. And if I'm not mistaken, that fight was requested to be at 170 pounds by Conor McGregor. Now, so Nate Diaz signed on the dotted line. They showed up. He had 10 days notice, so he didn't really have a training camp. So UFC 196 went on March 5th, 2016. The first round, they both kind of danced around a little bit, traded. There was a little bit of blood on Nate Diaz. Conor McGregor looked good. This was his first time at welterweight, 170 pounds. Again, so he's up two weight classes from his featherweight belt. He's trying to move himself around the weight classes, which I think is kind of cool. It's definitely something to be respected. You know, a guy that's not afraid to work and move up to different weight classes. So, to make the long story short, basically what happened in that fight, the first meeting between Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz, was in the second round. Nate Diaz clipped Conor with a 1-2 combination and kind of dazed him a little bit. And at that point, Conor appeared to have been gassed, and he shot for a very, what's the word I'm looking for, like a panic wrestler. He was losing on the stand-up, I think, at that moment, and he became a panic wrestler, decided that he wanted to try to take Nate Diaz down, which eventually ended up being a huge mistake, cost him the fight. He ended up getting caught, he got mounted, and ended up getting caught in a rear naked choke and tapped out. Now, one other thing that I want to note about their meeting at 196 was that Nate Diaz got Performance of the Night bonus. So not only did he submit Conor McGregor, he submitted him out of his own weight class. Now, Nate Diaz is normally a 155-pound fighter, and the two, again, they met at 170 pounds. So after that loss, Conor McGregor was very good in he was gracious in defeat, and he requested an immediate rematch at 170 pounds. Conor McGregor wanted the rematch at 170 pounds because he felt like that's where he made the mistake. That's where he got dethroned, you know, so to speak. So he felt like it would only be natural or correct to erase that loss at the same weight class in which it happened. And I honestly agree with them. I think that's a great thing, because why go down to a lower weight class or something like that when you lost at 170? Stay at that weight and finish the business there. I admire him for that, I really do. So 3 days after UFC 196, Nate Diaz agreed to the rematch. Now, there's been a lot of people walking around and talking about this fight, and they were saying that oh, you know, Conor McGregor gassed in that fight. Personally, I don't think so at all. let's not mistake the fact that the featherweight champion, 145 pounds, Conor McGregor, was trying to move up into 155 pounds to take on Rafael dos Anjos for the belt. So he was training at 155 pounds for a 5-round fight. 5-minute rounds, a title fight. So his cardio was on point, no doubt about it. 10 days prior to that, that's when Nate stepped up. They decided to meet at 170. So let's not think for 1 second that Conor McGregor was not prepared, you know, with his cardio. He was up to par. Now, in the fight, in the second round, about 2 minutes left in the second round, that's where Conor got clipped with that left right, and that's where a lot of people think that he was gassing. In my opinion, that was not him gassing. That was him breaking mentally. If you've ever been clipped really solid with a good shot, it takes your legs out from under you. And that's, I think, what happened to Conor. His cardio, his gas tank is very, very good. But he got clipped. He got hurt. He turned into a panic wrestler. It was not cardio, folks. It was panic. It was mental break. It was things like that. So, you know, let's talk about Conor McGregor and the type of fighter that he is. He is a very alpha male. He's a very alpha type personality. He's the kind of guy that likes to be in charge. He's the one that likes to dictate the pace of the fight. He is, for the lack of a better description, he is a bully when it comes to the way he likes to fight and the way he likes to move around and the way he likes to do his opponents. Now, he personally likes to do a lot of trash talking, and he likes to do a lot of stuff like that. The reason he's doing this, folks, is because he's trying to get that psychological edge over his opponent before they even have to go to the weigh-ins or before they even get to the fight. He's a great trash talker, and that technique, that psychological warfare that Conor McGregor is so good at, works on a lot of people. But it didn't work against Nate Diaz in their fight. So what does a bully do when a kid stands up to the bully? Like, especially if you got the kid that's getting bullied and he fires back, most bullies will stop right there and they'll be like, okay, this is too much work to beat this guy. I'm going to go pick on someone else. And I think that's what happened with Conor McGregor. He thought that he was going to come in there with Nate Diaz, and he thought he was going to push the pace and push his buttons around. And Nate stood there in the pocket, traded. He got bloody. He has a lot of scar tissue. But in the end, I think Nate Diaz broke Conor McGregor, and obviously he submitted him. He broke because Diaz did not let Conor bully him. That's my opinion. So now let's talk about Conor McGregor, and I want to talk about some of his strengths going into this rematch at 170 pounds coming up here on Saturday. He's got a great left hook. His left is power. That's his money move. That's what he knocked out Jose Aldo with. And Jose Aldo, let's not forget, he was undefeated for like 9 years. Almost 10 years, I think. And Conor clipped him with a left, boom, like really quick into the fight. So his left is very dangerous. His conditioning. Even though a lot of people think that he gassed against Nate, that was a mental break. That was an adrenaline dump. It wasn't his conditioning that he didn't gas. Conor McGregor has a gas tank that'll go for a long, long time. His mental toughness is sharp when he's in control. He believes in himself. He's got this really high desire to believe in himself. He's a very confident fighter. And that's good, but that can also get him in trouble at some point. Let's talk about his body. When they first met, when him and Nate Diaz had their first fight, that was at 170 pounds. And that was the first time that Conor had came up to 170 pounds. His body was fresh and new to that weight. Now that they're going to have this rematch, Conor's been at 170 pounds. He's been training at 170 pounds, and his body has now became acclimated at 170 pounds. So he's going to be, his timing is going to be on, his jiu-jitsu is going to be on, his balance and all these footwork and movement is going to be on at 170 pounds. He's used to this weight. He's a smart fighter. Conor's a very cerebral opponent. Now let's talk about some of the disadvantages in Conor McGregor. Some of the things that could bring him down. Number one, I think that the fact that he likes to dictate the pace and he likes to be this bully kind of fighter, I think that's going to hurt him. Number two, he is a sprinter. He doesn't want to finish, all 5 rounds. Conor McGregor likes to go out there and he likes to get business done and he likes to do it quickly. In fact, if you look back at a lot of his fights and a lot of his fight predictions that he's made on himself, you can tell that he's talking about first round knockout. Second round, I'm going to get him in the second. I'm going to get him in the first. He's a sprinter. He likes to go seal the deal very quickly. The longer the fight goes, in my opinion, the more it goes out of Conor's strength and more into Nate Diaz's strength. The third thing that could be a downside to him, we've already seen this. His Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is not near up to par with Nate Diaz. Conor McGregor's great on the ground. He's got excellent takedowns and things like that, but he's not, in my opinion, going to be able to hang on the ground in a submission game with Nate Diaz. I think he's going to be outclassed big time there. Number 4, I think one of the biggest drawbacks that Conor McGregor has, in my opinion, and I could be wrong about this, but I think he's the biggest guy in his circle. He's the toughest dude in his little clique that he hangs around with. Whether the guys that he's training with have respect for him and they're not nipping at his heels out of respect because maybe Conor will get pissed off if they tap him or something like that, so maybe they're holding back in their training, or maybe he just is that little bit more better than those guys that he's training with. But in either case, I think that Conor's not getting tested on a regular basis, and this type of training leading into a fight with someone like Nate Diaz is going to hurt him. I think it's going to give him a false sense of security in his boxing, a false sense of security in his jiu-jitsu, because he might be training and tapping guys out left and right, but those guys aren't at the level that Nate Diaz is at. I think Conor's going to go in there with a false sense of security, thinking that his skills are much better than they were. It's going to be a bad night. The fifth thing, I kind of touched on it earlier, and that is I think Conor gets weaker as the fight goes on. If I'm not mistaken, this fight with the rematch here coming up is going to be a 5-round fight. So we're talking 25 minutes of fighting. And when you get into the championship rounds, round 4 and round 5, those are the rounds that are going to be tested. And those are the rounds that Nate Diaz likes to shine. So I think those are the rounds that Conor McGregor is going to stumble in. Now let's talk about Nate Diaz and his strengths. 2 inches reach advantage against Conor McGregor. Conditioning. Now what does Nate Diaz do for fun? When he's not training for a fight, what is his hobby? He likes to do triathlons. Did you hear that? He likes to do triathlons. He's swimming, he's biking, he's doing all these workouts. His conditioning, his cardio is through the roof even when he's not in shape. So he's going to not run out of gas. He can go 5 rounds, 5 hard rounds, no problem. His boxing is crisp. He's got Richard Perez in his corner coaching him on boxing, and his footwork, his reach, his combinations, and the way he throws his punches are off the hook. Okay, Nate Diaz is ready to go. Number 4, he's not going to be pushed around. He's not going to allow Conor McGregor to be the bully in this fight. That's a huge strength. Strength number 5, his chin. I've seen him take tough punches, and people have connected on him, and his chin is solid. Number 6, he is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, he's not just any black belt. Any black belt is good, but he's a step above that in his lineage. He is a Cesar Gracie black belt. So you got black belts, and then you got Cesar Gracie black belts. Nate Diaz is no slouch at all on the ground. He knows his submissions. He knows how to play the ground. He's a very smart jiu-jitsu practitioner. Number 7, he has very solid training partners He's training with Jake Shields. He's training with Gilbert Melendez. He's training with his brother Nick Diaz. And I promise you, all of these people are pushing him to his point. I mean, they are pushing him. They're mounting him. They're taking his back. They're probably choking him. They're probably boxing him up. And he's getting good, solid training. He's getting his butt kicked in training, and that's going to make him shine in the fight. Now let's talk about him as a person. He grew up tough. He didn't have things handed, and I'm not saying Conor had things handed to him, but I think Nate Diaz, his history, the way he walks on this planet, he had a tough childhood, a tough upbringing. Walking around the streets of Stockton, he's tough. He's just tough to the core. He's got experience as a fighter too. He's got a wealth of experience. And even though you look at the numbers of his fight record versus Conor McGregor's fight record, they're, you know, Nate Diaz has lost more fights than Conor, and they have about the same amount of wins approximately. But let's understand one thing. Nate Diaz has fought tougher fighters by a long shot than Conor McGregor did on that same numbers, on those records. He's got tougher fights in his history, more experience, more octagon experience, and I just think that experience gives him the next advantage, which is his mental toughness. So his childhood was rough. He's got good training partners. He's mentally sound. You're not going to go out there and break Nate Diaz. Another advantage I think that Nate Diaz brings into this rematch, he's in Conor McGregor's head. If you didn't see that pre-fight press conference that they had, yesterday, Conor McGregor got pissed off and started throwing water bottles at him. What did that tell me? That told me that Nate Diaz is in your head and you just broke mentally. So I'm not saying Conor can't win, but I'm saying Nate's in his head big time. Nate also has a win over Conor McGregor. And that's hard to get over a loss like that, because in the back of your mind, you're always thinking about, this guy has choked me before and I've tapped. So Conor McGregor's got that weight on his shoulder too going into this fight. Another thing that I think Nate Diaz is going to have that's going to help him tremendously is he is coming into this fight with a full training camp. Let's not forget, folks, their first meeting, Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz, UFC 196, that was at 170 pounds, and Nate stepped in on 10 days' notice. He's got a full camp coming in for this fight. He's stronger as the fight goes. The longer this fight goes into the championship rounds, I think the more it's going to go into Nate Diaz's favor. Now let's talk about some of the drawbacks of Nate Diaz, some of his negatives. His chin. Now you're probably wondering, wait a minute, you just said that his chin is a strength. That's correct. I said his chin is a strength. But what I'm talking about is the actual jaw structure of a person. When they take repeated punishment, your jaw can only handle so many cracks in its career, so to speak. And once you get that one crack that's one too many, you could turn into what they refer to in boxing as a glass jaw. Now, we definitely know that Nate has had his chin tested before, and it's held up so far. Now, could he get cracked in this fight? Could he turn? And could that be the moment that he becomes a glass jaw? Personally, I don't think so, but we never know. When are we going to find that question out? I don't know. The other downside that I think Nate Diaz has going into this fight is he has a lot of scar tissue. This fight's going to be bloody. I think Conor's going to open him up, and because again, Conor's acclimated to this weight. He's going to be moving good at this weight. I don't know. We're going to see what happens. Now, here is my prediction. Everybody's probably waiting for this moment right here. Okay, dude, let's skip the BS and let's get to who you think's going to win and why. And what the fight's going to look like. Okay, in my opinion, I think Nate Diaz is going to walk away with this fight in any way that he wants to. I think it's going to be a harder fight than the last time. It's not going to be an easy fight like the last time, because Conor McGregor's smart. He's coming into this fight more prepared. He's going to be ready to bang. He's going to be ready. But the downside to Conor McGregor is he's kind of a one-trick pony. He likes to stand and bang. Now, does that mean that Conor McGregor would not take Nate Diaz down? No. I think I would not be surprised at all if I saw Conor take Nate Diaz down. Now, he better be damn careful with that, though, because what are you going to do when you get on the ground with Nate Diaz? I think the reason that Conor would take him down is because he's trying to score points on the judge's card, and he's trying to win a cerebral fight. And he's got to be very careful with that with Nate Diaz. So what do I think is going to happen? I think the fights, if Nate Diaz can weather the early storm in the first and second round of Conor McGregor, and they start getting into the third round and the fourth round, I think that's when Nate Diaz is going to start pushing it and start turning it on, and I think he's going to win this fight. It's not going to be easy, though. I think it's going to be a dog fight. I think it's going to be a bloody fight, and I think Nate Diaz is going to win again. Now, I just had a friend who I trust very deeply. This friend kind of has some information on the UFC, and the UFC just changed ownership. And from what I've been told, and I don't know if this is true, if this is rumor, I have no idea. All I know is the person telling me this information is pretty damn credible. And I've been told that Nate Diaz has been offered more money to lose than if he wins. Now, if that's true, that's going to really upset me, because now we're starting to get into political fighting, and it's going to start becoming what boxing used to be, and I hope that that's not true. And the reason, for those of you who might not understand why they would want him to lose, is because there's more money in a rubber match. And if Nate's got one victory and Conor's got this one, then they're going to make big money on the third fight, and that's who they're going to let win naturally. So I hope that this is not true. I hope that Nate Diaz goes in there and does what he's there to do. I think that Nate Diaz is not going to play into these financial antics. But again, you're in the fight business, and it's all about making money, and that's why he's fighting. So could we see him take one for the team? I don't know. I don't think so, but you never know. So folks, I want to say thank you for joining me today on this video. The upcoming fight, UFC 202 with Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz. I hope you got some good, useful information out of this video. Please feel free to leave your comments down below, like this video, share this video, and if you like the content on my channel, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. And until next time, folks, have a beautiful day. Now get out there and enjoy this upcoming fight, UFC 202, August 20th, 2016. It's going to be a great fight. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you later. God bless.